Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, if most Americans are invested in something, they're invested in the stock market, but they're missing out on some great returns if they thought about alternative investments. We'll be talking about that with the great Ron Glasgow next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I read the headlines every single day that so many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck and they haven't even saved a dime for their retirement. Many people are waking up, they're 50 plus, and they don't have any money set aside for an emergency or their retirement. And that's when they turn to a guy like my next guest. Ron Glasgow is in the studio. He's the founder of Glasgow Investment Solutions. Thanks for coming on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, first let's talk about your background. And I want to start with your military experience because thank you for serving our nation.
Oh, sure. And I always say, I didn't deploy. I tried. I graduated high school after 3.5 years. And joined the Marine Corps, started as a machine gunner in the infantry, but I was right after Gulf War. And the point I always make is some of the best experience I could have ever gotten, but I got way more out of the Corps than the Corps got out of me. And a lot of guys can't say that. It's the guys that went downrange that we should really respect and appreciate, because they're the ones that sacrificed and are still sacrificing, frankly.
Tell me some of the lessons that you learned in the military.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things with leadership, and leadership isn't this. You don't need to go to a leadership retreat or spend tens of thousands of dollars to learn how to lead. Just do the things that you just treat people the way you want to be treated, and don't ask anybody to do anything you wouldn't do. It's pretty simple in that regard. The other thing that I learned in the military is just persistence or perseverance. I do a lot of podcasts, and I always refer to it the same way as Mike and Ike, like those goofy little candies. But when life gets hard, and this was a hard year for me. I lost my mother somewhat unexpectedly. A few weeks later, I lost my sister completely unexpectedly. At the same time, I'm starting a new business. So when life gets hard, Mike and Ike is the only thing that matters. So what I mean by that is just put one foot in front of the other, get up every day, keep moving, and sooner or later, things will even out.
It's so powerful, and I'm so sorry for your loss. We're going to pull up your website, and as we scroll on the website, let's talk about the kinds of clients that you like to work with.
Sure. So by default, I tend to work with the high net worth, and it's not that I'm trying to be greedy or look for just people with money, but I'm a financial planner. I'm a certified financial planner, and I have a master's in tax and financial planning. I did that for 10 years before I took a detour into private equity. So I've held positions as senior vice president or managing director for private equity real estate and credit firms. Yes. So because of that experience, I opened Glasgow Investment Solutions, and because of the IRS code, most of those clients have to be accredited. Accredited very loosely means that you have $1 million, not counting your primary residence. Yes. So because of that, I often deal with high net worth clients that are looking to get true diversification, not just the sort of stock model portfolios that Wall Street's been selling them.
Sure. Well, let's talk about alternative investments, because so many Americans just put their money into, a S&P, fund or something like that, and they're couch potatoes and they just let it ride. Yeah. But we never know what the stock market's going to do. There are alternative investments that are good bets. Let's talk about a few of them.
Correct. And I think a lot of people think that these are risky or they're very rare, and they're not. These investments have been around for 30 years. It's the way foundations, institutions, and family offices have invested for nearly 30 years. The issue is the minimums were very high, normally $5 or $10 million. Well, over the last decade, that's come down to be bite-sized for people like you and I so that we can invest in them. And they're so important because it's not your dad's stock market. People think that when they buy the S&P 500, they're well diversified, and they're not. What you have ultimately is a bunch of middle market names, and you have 7 behemoths, the Magnificent Seven, that accounts for over a third of the stock market's entire value on any given day. So a couple of stats that shock people are there are 50% less publicly traded companies today than there were 30 years ago. 87% of companies with revenues over $100 million are private. So you're hunting in a much smaller hunting ground, and the game you're getting, it's not those 12-point bucks that your dad was getting. You're getting the much smaller ones. So you really need to venture out into private equity, private credit, oil and gas, into something else to get true diversification for your portfolio.
Yes.
And we saw that at the beginning of the year with the pullback. It was a very normal pullback, but you'd have swore we were in the middle of the Great Recession again.
Yes.
That's because people are too highly correlated with their stocks and bonds.
All right, let's talk about some of the areas that you're interested in, like real estate has traditionally been a solid investment.
Yeah, so real estate is one of the things that I love. It's really where I specialize when it comes to alternatives or private investments. The thing I love about real estate is it's a tangible object. You could actually touch it. Unless you have a Chernobyl, it's rarely going to go to zero.
Yes.
So you're going to have that asset there for you. Similarly, you have credit, and credit just means the way that you can make loans, oftentimes on real estate. It's another great way to go instead of just your traditional bonds.
Yes.
And then increasingly, here, especially in Texas, you have oil and gas programs. Some of these historically weren't very good. They were just drilling programs where, you kind of wildcatted and hope you hit oil.
Yeah.
Today, they're a lot more ironed out, and you can invest into into wells that are already pumping oil or into pumping gas, and you have a steady income. You may not hit those big home runs like Jerry Jones did wildcatting, but you're still going to be able to buy a box of the game if you can't own the Cowboys.
There you go. All right, we're going to show some video of you on somebody else's podcast because I know you do a lot of podcasting. You do have the heart of a teacher. You like to educate people, don't you?
I do. I think it's something. The only reason I'm sitting at this desk is somebody took the time to educate me, and it's something you want to pay forward. I guess by looking at your monitors here, I'm the old guy because I certainly have the gray hair now. So.
Tell me where you see the future going, because a lot of people, when you watch the media, they like to scare people. So half of the pundits are saying we're about to have a big, .com bust, and half of the pundits are like, no, we're getting tax cuts, and so we may have more room to run. What is your advice for people?
Yeah, I started this business in 2001, and my crystal ball works about as well today as it did back then, and that's not at all. What I will say is nothing goes up forever. In my career, my first 9 years of my career, we had 3 bear markets. We haven't really had one since. I know there's been some pullbacks, but not really a bear market. And, the bulls only last so long. I think there's a lot of people wondering why the stock market's valued where it is.
Yes.
And, those values just can't run forever, which is why you want to make an all-weather portfolio. You don't want to go to all cash or do anything silly there either because the inflation will eat you up. But you do want to make an all-weather portfolio, and that means maybe, taking on some strategies that you haven't looked at in the past because those are necessary to get diversification today.
All right, let's talk about one more category, collectibles. Because so many people are like, hey, maybe I should invest in Labubu dolls or comic books or something like that. How do you feel about alternative investments in collectibles?
Yeah, when it comes to collectibles, look, how much money do you really have? This is where you got to gut check yourself.
Yeah.
Are you investing in these collectibles because you really think they're going to go up in value? A lot of times they don't. I know I kick the tires pretty hard on some whiskey and things, and look, there's a glut of whiskey. That's why there's whiskey investments.
Yes.
So you want to be aware of these.
Yes.
But I always say, look, if you got $5 million in the bank, you're a car guy and you want to buy that matching number C1 or C2 Corvette, buy it. It's not going to go down in value. They're not making any more of them.
Right.
Now, is it going to go up tremendously? I don't know, but it's a good placeholder that you actually get to enjoy because none of us just want a Scrooge McDuck with a big pile of money. It doesn't do us any good. You want to enjoy the fruits of your labor sometimes.
Cool. Okay, we have a minute left, so Ron, final thoughts.
His final thoughts are, the most important thing you could do when it comes to investing is get started. So if you're 20 out there, do yourself a favor, open an account, put $50 a month in. I promise you'll thank me one day. You're not going to do it though. So then when you do get older and you look around, just remember a model portfolio isn't a model for anyone except Wall Street. They make them because they're easy. So you really need to do the due diligence to get the investments that work for you.
Wow. Ron, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your heart and wisdom with us. So we're going to end with his website, which is GlasgowInvestments.com, the great Ron Glasgow. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.